There comes a moment in life when you can no longer ignore the truth that's been silently chasing you. It's not that you're missing something. It's that you've forgotten who lives within you. Because most people don't walk around empty. They walk around disconnected. They look for strength as if they didn't have any. They ask for direction as if they were lost. They crawl through life as if God were far away. But the truth is, He's always been within. Not outside, not above, not in the next sign. Within. And everything changes the day you remember. The day you stop chasing power and start walking as if it's already yours. Today, this day, could be that moment. But only if you choose to listen with your whole being. Because you're not here by accident. You're here because it's time to remember. They taught you to act as if you were alone, to depend on the external. Validation, plans, logic, resources. To believe that power is somewhere else, in another time, in someone else's hands. And without noticing, you became someone who waits. Waits for approval. Waits for signs. Waits to feel ready. But that waiting is the greatest trap, because here's the truth. You were never alone. You just believed you were. The world made you forget. With criticism, with comparison, with disappointment. They wrapped you in a story where you were weak, where you needed to be saved, where you were never enough. But no one told you this. The voice of God doesn't shout. It whispers. And if you're full of noise, you can't hear it. The most dangerous lie isn't that you failed. It's that you're broken. And you're not. What you have is dormant power. Buried. Forgotten. Sleeping. It didn't disappear. It was simply forgotten. That's why you're here. Not to be motivated, but to be awakened. Because when you remember who lives within you, everything changes. Your walk, your words, your energy, your destiny. So listen with your soul, because what comes next isn't just an idea. It's a forgotten truth, about to rise inside you. Inside you doesn't live just a desire, not just motivation, not just a simple hope. Inside you lives an eternal presence, an infinite intelligence with no beginning and no end. You can't see it with your eyes, but you felt it. In those silent moments when something deep inside whispered, "This can't be it. I was born for more." That whisper wasn't your imagination. It was your true essence, calling you back. Because within you, fear does not live. Doubt doesn't live there either. Maybe I'm not enough doesn't belong. Inside you lives the same power that formed galaxies, raised mountains, and touched hearts without speaking a word. It's not a symbol. It's not just spiritual theory. It's a real force, still waiting for you to claim it. But it won't shout. It won't force itself. It won't beg for permission. Because the power within you is so immense, it only activates when you choose to align with it. That thing you call intuition. That gut feeling that says, something is guiding me. That isn't coincidence. It's direction. It's the eternal voice speaking from within. What lives in you doesn't need to be created. It needs to be remembered. It's not being tested. It doesn't depend on your past. It doesn't need rituals. It doesn't ask for approval. It's ready. It's just waiting for you to stop searching outside and start looking within. Because once you truly understand who lives inside you, you never walk the same. Not because the path changes, but because now you know who walks with you. They taught us to beg, to plead for strength, to ask for wisdom as if it were far away, to chase signs like God is playing hide and seek. But hear me clearly. The power that transforms lives is not begged for. It's remembered. You don't need to light a candle to access it. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You don't need to feel holy, perfect, or special. You just need to align. Because when you are aligned, you don't ask for permission. You walk like you're already backed, because you are. You don't need to scream to be heard by heaven. Heaven is already inside. It's not about convincing God to help you. It's about reminding yourself that He never left. Power doesn't respond to emotion. It responds to decision. You decide when to stop begging and start walking like a child of the divine. You decide whether you keep waiting for more signs or if you finally become the sign. You know what happens when you stop acting like a victim. Your words change. Your body changes. Your energy changes. Because remembering who you are is more powerful than any ritual. And I'm not talking about pretending to believe like blind faith. I'm talking about choosing to live it, even when your hands still shake. Because the sacred doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It moves the moment you say, I'm available. Available to listen. Available to act. Available to stop negotiating with fear. And you know what happens when you make yourself available? Power activates. Not because you summoned it, but because you finally stopped resisting it. That's what it means to remember. It's not magic. It's alignment. It's coherence between what you believe and how you walk. So today, stop asking for strength. Walk like you already have it. Because you do. You just forgot. When you remember who lives in you, you no longer walk the same. Your body doesn't move from fear. It moves from certainty. Your words don't aim to impress. They aim to transmit. Your energy stops being scattered. Now it's focused, directed, present. Because the one who remembers who they are is no longer looking for attention. They're building legacy. You see differently. You speak differently. You breathe differently. Not because you've become more spiritual, but because now you're aligned. What once made you tremble now strengthens you. What once made you doubt now drives you. And you know what else changes? How you face silence, because you no longer fear it. Now you honor it. You no longer need noise to feel alive. You just close your eyes and remember what vibrates within. They used to talk about you, and you'd collapse. Now they talk, and you smile, because you know something they haven't remembered yet. And your faith, it no longer depends on motivation. Now your faith is a state of consciousness. You stop walking like you're missing something and start moving like someone who's already received. Not because everything's perfect, but because you've stopped searching outside for what has always been inside. And in that moment, the universe responds. Doors open. The right people appear. The path becomes clear. Not because of magic, because of coherence. Because the one who walks with power attracts what aligns with that power, and the one who remembers what they carry becomes living proof that God never left. So look at yourself closely today, because after this remembrance, you will never walk the same. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is simply a sign that you're standing before something great. But they've told you to wait until you feel ready. They've made you believe the moment will come when everything aligns. The moment comes when you obey, not when you understand everything, not when you feel confident, not when your voice stops shaking, but when you decide to act in alignment, even if your soul is trembling. Because fear isn't conquered with more information. It's conquered with action. You want to know what destroys fear? Obedience. Because spiritual obedience doesn't wait for feelings. It only waits for willingness. The one who obeys doesn't need guarantees. They only need an internal instruction and the will to move. And believe me, when you obey that voice that doesn't shout, but knows everything, the entire universe begins to align with your steps, not by coincidence, but by synchronicity. Because now, you're walking in rhythm with the source that created you. The one who waits to feel worthy becomes paralyzed. The one who waits for validation falls behind. But the one who acts with what they already know becomes a channel. You know who changes the world? Not the wisest, not the strongest, not the most popular, but the one who obeys, the one who rises when everything inside says, you can't. But something deeper whispers, go anyway, because that something is God speaking to you. Not in screams, not with thunder, but with that quiet certainty you feel right in the center of your chest. And if you've ever felt that, you no longer have an excuse. You don't need others to understand it. You just need to say, yes, even if I'm afraid. Yes, even if I don't feel ready. Yes, because I was called. And that yes changes everything. When a man is aligned, he doesn't need to announce it. His presence says it all. He walks into a room, and the atmosphere shifts, not because he's the loudest, but because his silence carries weight. His eyes don't avoid. His steps don't hesitate. His voice doesn't seek to impress. He speaks less, but every word carries direction. He doesn't need to win every argument, because he's at peace with his truth. He doesn't run. He doesn't react to chaos. He walks with his own rhythm, as if he already knows where he's going. And do you know why? Because he knows who's guiding him. An aligned life is not a perfect life, but it's a powerful one. Not because it's free of problems, but because the one who walks with God within no longer negotiates their peace. They stop being available to everyone, not out of ego, but because their energy is sacred. They stop explaining themselves, not because they lack arguments, but because they no longer need to convince. Their decisions are not reactive. They are strategic, calm, coherent. The aligned person doesn't chase, they attract. They're not desperate to be seen. They know what's real shines by itself. And how do they live? With intention, with direction, with a calmness that unsettles those who haven't remembered yet. Because the aligned life doesn't scream, look at me. The aligned life whispers, remember who you are too. And that is what impacts the most. That someone could live in such peace, so connected, so grounded in their path, that without saying a word, they awaken the eternal in you. That's what a life looks like that doesn't just believe in God, but walks as if He lives within. It's not arrogance, it's reverence. It's remembering that every step carries weight, and every glance carries intention, because the one aligned with the source never walks alone, and you can feel it. If the power inside you is so great, why do you sometimes not feel it? It's not because it left. It's because you've covered it. You've buried it with doubt, buried it beneath habits, surrounded it with voices that distract you. Your power is still there, but there's too much noise on top of it. Constant fear, empty comparisons, people who don't believe in you, and you believing them. Empty routines, soulless conversations, information without purpose. All of that clogs the channel, not because the channel is broken, but because you've saturated it. You've filled your life with things that don't feed your spirit. And then you wonder why you don't feel clarity. How can the inner voice speak if it's buried under external noise? How can God reveal Himself if you've buried Him under 1,000 notifications, opinions, excuses, and soul-draining activities? Confusion doesn't come from lack of direction. It comes from excess distraction. You don't feel peace not because it's unavailable, but because you're too full of everything else. Expired relationships, other people's opinions, inherited fears. And there you are, carrying all of it as if it were necessary. But it's not. Every unnecessary weight steals space from the power that longs to express itself within you. That's why sometimes you feel like something inside wants to come out, but can't, because the channel is occupied. So don't keep asking why you don't feel direction. Ask yourself, what am I allowing to block my power? Because once you identify it and remove it, the divine inside you will manifest without obstacles, not because it changed, but because you finally let it flow. God doesn't dwell in disorder. The divine voice doesn't force itself. It doesn't shout. It doesn't interrupt. It waits. It waits for you to make space. You want clarity? Turn down the noise. You want guidance? Close the doors that drain your energy. Because the sacred cannot reside in a house full of chaos. And I'm not just talking about your physical space. I'm talking about your mind, your thoughts, your conversations. Do a spiritual cleanse. Fast from what doesn't build you up. Fast from urgency. Fast from external judgment. There are doors that need to be closed. Not because you're bad, but because you're ready for more. Take 10 minutes. No music. No screens. No talking. Just you and your soul. And listen. Not to what your fear says. Not to what the news says. Listen to what only silence can reveal. Because there is where God speaks loudest. Not because he turns up the volume, but because you turned down the noise. Protect your energy as if it were sacred, because it is. Guard your time like a temple. Be intentional with what you consume, with what you allow into your mind, with the people you keep close. Because if you're carrying conversations that drain you, environments that distract you, habits that deplete you, then it's not God who is absent. It's your awareness that's occupied. Make space, emotional space, spiritual space, vibrational space. Not for God to arrive, but for you to perceive him. He's already there. He just needs room to move. You don't need to feel invincible. You don't need everything figured out. You just need to choose to walk. Even with fear. Even with doubt. Even with your voice trembling. Because the most powerful moment of your life won't be when you feel ready. It will be when you obey, even when you don't. The one who waits to feel strong grows weaker with time. But the one who walks, even while their legs are shaking, that's the one the universe honors. Because God doesn't expect perfection. He expects availability. He waits for that first step, in the middle of the noise. That quiet decision, that shifts the atmosphere. And when you take that step, heaven moves with you. The strength you thought was far away begins to rise from within. Not because it magically appeared, but because you made space. By acting. You know what happens when you walk in faith. The answers come as you move. Not before. Peace reveals itself in motion, not in passive waiting. Because every step you take, even if it feels small, sends a signal to the universe. I'm ready to be a vessel. And at that moment, everything you need begins to align. People, ideas, resources, energy. But only once you are already in motion. So stop waiting for more signs. You are the sign. Don't ask God to give you what he already planted inside you. Just take the first step. With your voice shaking, with your hands sweating, with your heart racing. Because every tremble you face with obedience brings you closer to the power that carries your name. And with every step, fear loses its grip. Because the one who walks with God, even if they tremble, never stops. When you act from alignment, the world doesn't treat you the same. Not because the world changed, but because you changed the way you move in it. Doors no longer open through force. They open through presence. You no longer chase opportunities. Opportunities begin to recognize you, because what you do in alignment carries a different weight. Your words have intention. Your ideas are born from a deeper place. Your steps may not sound loud, but they echo far. The noise no longer distracts you. The opinions no longer stop you. The doubts no longer decide for you. Because now you choose from spirit, not from wounds, from mission, not from emotion. You begin to notice things you never saw before. Subtle moments, answers hidden in the ordinary. And not because everything is now magical, but because now you're present. You're awake. You're tuned in. You don't need to know step 10. Step 1 is enough for the universe to respond, because the divine doesn't respond to control. It responds to obedience. The power you carry doesn't show up when you do everything right. It shows up when you make space for it to express itself, and that space is created through action. In the quiet yes you say when no one is watching, in the movement you make when no one applauds, because that movement sends a signal to heaven. I am available. And when you are available, creation itself moves to collaborate with you, not out of luck, but out of alignment. And that is the difference between fighting for your life and walking in purpose. The first one exhausts. The second expands. Because when you walk in alignment, you don't just transform your life. You become a doorway for others to remember theirs. Imagine a man who no longer apologizes for his fire, who doesn't walk to be seen. But when he enters a room, the atmosphere changes. His energy is not aggressive, it's undeniable. He doesn't shout to dominate. He speaks only when needed. And his words travel farther than empty speeches. He observes more than he speaks. And when he does speak, his voice has direction. He doesn't chase what he wants. He walks in peace toward what aligns. He doesn't respond from the wound. He responds from the source. His decisions don't seek approval. They come from discernment. He doesn't fear being alone. Because he's not alone, he carries something inside that backs him, that guides him, that sustains him. He's a man who no longer needs to prove anything, because his silence preaches. He looks with calm. He listens deeply. He walks with certainty. And when he doubts, because he doesn't hide. He pauses. He breathes. He remembers. And then he walks again. His faith is not noise. It's rhythm. His confidence is not arrogance. It's reverence for what he carries within. And when you see him, something inside you wakes up, not because he motivates you, but because he reminds you of what you carry too. That is the strength of a man full of God. He doesn't impose. He inspires. He doesn't act like he knows everything. He walks as if he knows the source of everything. And that's why his steps carry weight. His voice carries echo. His life carries direction. He's not more blessed than you. He's just more awake. And now, it's your turn to awaken too. You've been looking for signs. You've waited for someone to say, it's your time. But what if it already is? What if this message isn't a coincidence? What if God already spoke? And now, He's waiting for your response? Because what you carry inside isn't a promise. It's an assignment. You didn't come here to ask for permission. You came here to remember who you are and to walk like someone who's already been sent. The mistake isn't in doubting. The mistake is staying in doubt after you've already been activated. And you know what the big lie is? That you need more time. You need decision, because every day you delay. a part of your purpose grows cold. Every time you say, later, a voice inside you dims just a little more. And that voice isn't just any voice. It's the voice of the God who lives in you. You're not waiting for a miracle. You are the miracle. You're not waiting for everything to change. Everything is waiting for you to change. To accept what's already been given. To stop asking for permission. To rise as someone who's already been chosen. Because yes, you've been chosen. Not for your merits, but for your willingness. And now, the world doesn't need another opinion. It needs your conviction. It needs to see you walk differently, to speak with intention, to move as if you already knew God is within. Because when you remember, those around you begin to remember too. You didn't come to entertain. You came to ignite. And if you're still wondering, could this really be the moment? Let me give you the answer, with total clarity. Yes, it is now. Not because you feel it, but because the call has already been made. And now, the only thing left is for you to decide. To walk like the answer you've always been. You don't need to promise anything. You don't need to shout who you are. You just need to walk, like someone who finally remembered. Let every step you take be a silent declaration. God lives in me, and it shows. This is not a time for more theories. This is not a time to keep waiting for something external to arrive. This is a time to embody, to be, to reflect. Because the world won't change through speeches. It will change through men and women who walk in alignment, who don't live to convince, but to be the evidence that the divine can dwell in the human. And you are called to that, to be the exception, to be the example, to be the echo of a truth that can no longer be silenced. So let your silence speak. Let your walk preach. Let your life become living proof that God is not far away. He is within. And when that becomes real, there is no force in the world that can stop you. Because the one who remembers who walks with him no longer needs permission. He only needs to take the next step.